naturally. So.
Well, Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
Hallelujah.
She said 5 minutes.
Okay, 5 minutes. Well, we're going to get something started here anyway.
I guess you'll have to go out and help her, Jerry.
Shabbat Shalom.
Oh, there you go.
I am Jerry Heelan with Yahweh's Evangelical Assembly. This is the Shabbat, August 8th, right? 2020. Welcome to our services today. You can contact us by writing to us at Post Office Box 31, Atlanta, Texas, 75551, 3 5s. You can also get us on email, Jerry Heelan at sbcglobal.net. We also have a website, yea777.org. And you can call me on my phone number, cell phone 903-826-1804. We're going to open with the Shema. And we're going to sing the Shema, and then we're going to go into Mark chapter 12, where Yahshua himself did the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. And here in Mark chapter 12, one of the scribes came and asked Yahshua, which is the first commandment of all? And Yahshua answered him, the first of all the commandments is, Hear, O Israel, Yahweh our Elohim is one Yahweh. And you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. This is the first commandment. And the second is like, namely this, you shall love Yahweh, your neighbor as yourself. There is none other commandment greater than these. Hallelujah. That is so, so important. Oh, man, this thing went out on me. We're going to get the song service started here pretty quick as soon as I get it up and going here. I guess we got somebody that's has shown up at our doorstep. I'm like, Lexi. Okay. Here's my songbook. So we're going to start singing here shortly as soon as everybody decides to come back in here. And I think we're going to start with number 38. Let us love one another. And we're just showing them love so they can get back in here. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get it started. Let us love one another. Number 38. Let us love one another. Love is of God. Everyone that loves is born of God. Know with God. For he that loveth God knows not God, for God is love. He loves it. Let us love one another. Beloved, let us love one another. Love is of God. Everyone that loveth is born of God. Know with God. He that loveth God No one. We love it. Let us love one another. We love it. Let us love one another. Love of God. Everyone that loves us. All of Yah. Knoweth Yah. For he that loveth not knoweth not Yah, for Yah is love. We love it. Let us love one another. John 4:7-8. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, it was good.
Shabbat shalom. That was
Shabbat
loud.
shalom. Yeah, that was loud. It's never played that loud before. I was enjoying it.
Yeah, me too.
I wasn't.
Nobody could hear me sing.
You hurt my ears.
I thought, boy, it's got that good.
I don't have my cotton in my ears.
All right, let's just go on. Let us march with hearts courageous. Brethren, we're living at a day and a time where we're going to have some courage. Because there's a lot of things going on in this world today. And that's basically some of the things that the message is going to be about today. But we are living in a day and a time. It's going to take courage for us to continue walking in this way. A lot of courage. And a lot of faith too, by the way. Okay, number 39. Let us march with hearts courageous. Give us ears to hear that still small voice, and give us lips forever willing to rejoice. May our eyes be filled with wisdom, may we know the path that's true, and we'll march with hearts courageous after you. We're marching on with hearts courageous. We'll follow anywhere you want us to. And should you lead us where the battle rages, let us march with hearts courageous after you. With troubles in the light along the way, help us to see time of darkness to rise up flame. A time for hope, a time for courage, knowing you will lead us through. And we'll march with hearts courageous after you. We're marching on with hearts courageous. We'll follow anywhere you want us to. And should you lead us where the battle rages, let us march with hearts courageous after you. Hearts courageous after you. That still reminds me of the time that we went to the Philippines, and there was battles going on ahead of us in Mindanao, and we kept going through all these checkpoints, but we never heard a bullet. Then another time we went over there and went to Cotabato, which is on Mindanao, but it's the stronghold of the Muslims over there. So what we did is we put a darkened piece of film over the window where I was sitting, and we just drove right into Cotabato and met with brethren there and drove right out.
Oh, yeah.
But
He's a way maker.
Huh?
He's a way maker.
Yeah. So Yahweh blessed us. Okay. Let's do number 43.
I don't have enough.
Oh yeah. Oh, that lady's on here. Let's do it. Not by might. Spirit, saith Yahweh. Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith Yahweh. This mountain shall be removed. This mountain shall be removed. This mountain shall be removed. By my Spirit, saith Yahweh. Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith Yahweh. Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith Yahweh. This mountain shall be removed. This mountain shall be removed. This mountain shall be removed. By my Spirit, saith Yahweh. Hallelujah. Yeah, that mountain, you know what mountain it's talking about, right?
Any mountain.
But it's really talking about the great mountain of Rome. That mountain is going to be removed. Okay, let's do number 44, one thing. We all ought to be singing after this. One thing. One thing have I desired of Yahweh, that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of Yahweh all the days of my life. To behold the beauty of Yahweh, and to inquire in His temple. To behold the beauty of Yahweh, to inquire in His temple. One thing have I desired of Yahweh, and will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of Yahweh all the days of my life. To behold the beauty of Yahweh, and to inquire in His temple. To behold the beauty of Yahweh, and to inquire in His temple. All right. Let's just go on with number 45. You know, that's one of the things that we need to realize, though, is that we are invited to live in the house of Yahweh. And that is awesome.
David Collins said, asking for prayer for him and his wife, Anna. They're heading for Tennessee in a day or two, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, David Collins, and everybody else, by the way. Yeah, may Yahweh be with you as you travel. Only in Yahweh, number 45. He's our stronghold. He's our strong tower. Only in Yah is my soul at rest. In Him comes my salvation. be afraid at all, my stronghold, my Savior. I shall not be moved. Only in God is found safety when the enemy pursues me. Only in God is found glory when I am found weak and found low. My stronghold, my Savior, I shall not be afraid at all. My stronghold, my Savior, I shall not be moved. Hallelujah.
That's really good.
Love it.
We need to be reminded of that.
Huh?
So we need to be reminded of that
Oh, yeah, always.
every day.
All right. Let's see, I think I've got a prayer list down here somewhere. What did somebody do with it?
Francis moved it.
That's just- Oh, here it is.
Robert,
I told you.
Well, we got Brian and Mildred Anderson, and Brian especially, he's jobless right now, and he needs to find something to be able to keep paying the bills, right? Leah Baird, we need to probably check with her.
Yeah.
She's been on the prayer list for a while.
Yeah.
Ray Beatty and Alan Kirk, Mary Brown and family, Matthew Dorado. I get to talk to Matthew every now and then. I love to talk to the guy. Sometimes, last time we talked, we got cut off and never did get back with him. Courtney Foster, David and Lexi Harris, Francis Heelan, Julian Jr., Jimmy Cakeley, Johnny McCarty. Johnny McCarty, we have not seen him in 3 months. Now, he's got congestive heart failure, and we've been trying to get in touch with him. We've been texting him, and normally if we text him, well, he'll at least text us back. As a matter of fact, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, our daughter Rachel did text him, and he answered her back, but she texted him last night? No answer. I've been texting him, I've called him, and I've emailed him, and no answers. And so we don't know what's happened to him. So we're just, as long as we think he's still living, we're going to be praying for him.
Marissa.
Huh?
Marissa. About the middle.
Marissa, praying for all of our patients at dialysis. We've lost so many in the last couple of weeks.
Robert said, we should remind you.
Robert and
Yeah, he said-
Tanya Kirk, they've been sick. I guess they still are sick.
Mhm.
David Collins and his wife, what is his wife's name? Anna?
Anna.
Anna?
Yeah, and
Yeah, they're in Washington State right now, and he's on his way. They're going to be on their way in a couple of days to Tennessee. Joseph Miller, Josh Mitchell, Sienna Mobley, Bryson Prim, Judy Powell, and Andrea Reimer. Is anybody else? Can you think of anybody else? And of course, the people that Marissa was talking about. There's so many people that have been on dialysis and that lost a bunch of them lately. And but brethren, that's one of the things that we need to be happy about and we need to be thankful for, is that Yahweh's the one who's in charge. And this first death is we were born into this world and we're going to exit this world. It's as simple as that. And it's not a hopeless case. Death is not a hopeless case unless you have blasphemed Yahweh's Ruach HaKodesh. You know, if you belong to Yahshua, then you are definitely going to be resurrected to a life that is so far greater than this life. Awesome. Can't even begin to think about it. I guess I'll turn that thing off. So we shouldn't fear.
What is it, a wasp?
Yahshua himself said, well, I'm going to finish the message with that. So anyway, Brandon, let's go before the throne of Yahweh. And what's the matter?
There's a bug in here.
A bug? Probably a fly.
It is a. No, it's not a fly.
Maybe ain't gonna hurt nobody.
Yeah. Let's don't get afraid, everybody. It's just a little bug flying around. He's not interested in us, and we're not interested in him. Father in heaven, Yahweh, thank you so much for this Shabbat. Thank you, Father in heaven, for your people, for your plan, and for your purpose. We know that we're living in horrible and wretched times, in deadly and dangerous times. They're getting more and more deadly, more and more dangerous every day. But you are Yahweh, you are Elohim, and you're the one who has the power to protect us. You're the one who has the power to save us in this day and age. And yet, Father in heaven, in death, you have the power to resurrect. And so we thank you and praise you for that. Now, we've got a lot of people on the prayer list. We have pared it down somewhat, and we thank you for that. But Father in heaven, we certainly ask you to be with those who are sick, those who are suffering under affliction, those who are facing dangers in this world today, because times are getting more deadly and more dangerous all the time. We just thank you for watching over your people, protecting your people, doing what you promised that you will do. And so, Father in heaven, we just commit all things into your capable hands. Certainly need you to inspire the message, inspire the speaking, as well as the hearing. This message comes right directly out of your word, Father in heaven, and your spirit inspired it. So continue, Father in heaven, with that inspiration and power and strength, Father, as the message is delivered. And we give you the thanks and praise. We commit all things into your capable hands. We thank you for this day, this Shabbat, and for opening our eyes and our hearts to be able to see, know, and understand that it's important to you, and it should therefore be very important to us, because it's a memorial to your great handiworks. Thank you, Father in heaven. Thank you for this awesome, marvelous, and wondrous creation, which so many foolishly deny. Foolishly deny. Because they're blinded, Father. But you've blessed us to make us a part of this creation, to be able to bring us forth so we can actually witness to your awesome, marvelous, and wondrous handiwork, and be your handiwork also. And so, Father in heaven, we give you the thanks and praise, and we know that you don't stop here, that you have another world, another kingdom that's coming that is going to be so far greater than this kingdom, this world, this life, that, Father in heaven, there's no comparison. We thank you for that. We praise you for that, and we look forward to that day, that time, that period. And Father in heaven, we give you the thanks and praise for it. Prepare us in our hearts and our minds today and every day for it. In, by, and through the name of your Son, Yahshua, we pray and ask these things, thanking and praising you. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Amen.
Like Solomon says, they're willfully ignorant.
Mm-hmm. Peter said,
Yeah.
they're willingly ignorant.
Wretched, miserable, poor, blind, and
As a matter of fact, brethren, the title of this message is Red Alert. warning America and Judah, with Israel in parentheses, because America and Judah are Israel. We're living in a day and time, brethren, when a lot of things, a lot of deadly and dangerous things are happening. And we have people in our government and in other governments around this world, and they are working to overthrow what was established by the founding fathers, to actually put us under the tyranny of communism. Now, we've been under the tyranny of socialism and all for a while, but let's go over here to the book of 1 Peter chapter 4. Because, brethren, we are at the end of this age. And here's Peter. He's talking here in 1 Peter chapter 4 and verse 17. He says, "For the time is come that judgment must begin at the house of Yahweh." Now, judgment came upon the house of Yahweh in Jerusalem not long after he wrote this. Judgment came upon them and that house that was built by men. But now he's talking about us. He says, "And if it first begin with us, what shall the end be of them that obey not the gospel, the good news of Yahweh? Of Yahweh, of Elohim." What shall it be, brethren? Judgment is coming. Judgment is coming. And so he must judge first. The first is his assembly. Those that he is living in today, they are his house. And hopefully that's us, but judgment must come upon us. And then it's going to go on the people of Israel, the physical descendants of Israel, which would include, you've got the Jews who supposedly seek to live by the Torah. They don't, but the Pharisees of old, they were going to come under judgment and destruction. Same thing's going to happen in this world today. But also, you got people who call themselves Christian, and they claim that they're following the scriptures. They're not. So judgment is going to come upon them. And America was established as a Christian nation up until Obama. And then we no longer were a Christian nation, right? I mean, that was his announcement, that we're no longer a Christian nation. Well, of course, those of us who have been called to Yahweh's calling to the truth, we understand. We understand, brethren, we're not Christian. We're followers of the Messiah. We're messianic. To be a Christian is to be a follower of Christ. To be a messianic is to be a follower of the Messiah. Now, I prefer, a Christian. If a Christian's going to follow the one that they call Christ, then they need to follow him as what he lives by in the scriptures, right? If not, judgment's going to come. We proclaim that we're messianics, just did, if we don't follow what is commanded of us. Judgment is going to come. So, Jerusalem's where the house of Yahweh was, but now those who possess the spirit of Yahweh, they're the house of Yahweh. But Yahweh's intended that the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they're the house, the family of Yahweh. So judgment will begin with them also, and then go to the house of Judah and Israel, and finally to the rest of the world. So the world is going to judge first. Let's go to the book of Jeremiah, chapter 30. Because a lot of things are happening in this nation today, brethren. And not only in America, These same things are going on in Israel. Well, actually, modern day Judah. They have a right to be called Israel, but not proclaim that they are the only Israel, because Joseph was the house of Israel. The sons of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh, were the ones who Israel named his name upon, and their inheritance is the name Israel. That's the reason why when Israel and Judah separated, the southern kingdom was called Judah. They were called Judah. But Yahweh's family has traversed through the ages. You know, northern Israel was taken into captivity. Judgment had come upon them before it even came upon Judah. And they were taken up into the Assyrian kingdom, up close to the Caucasus Mountains, Caucasus Mountain area. They were held there for a period of 390 years, according to the book of Ezekiel. And then they were let go. And they went north and then west. North and west. So they went north into the Georgia steppes, and then west into Europe, and then the British Isles, and now into America and other parts of the world. Judah was different. Judah went into Babylon. They were taken into Babylon. Judgment came upon them. But they've already been judged again. Well, you know, brethren, the sad thing is, Israel and Judah have really never learned their lessons. Still, and look at what's happening with us today in this nation. Abortion on demand. Actually, they're demanding abortion. You know.
Where young girls can have an abortion without their parents.
Yeah. Let's see. Wasn't it some woman that had
21.
had on a shirt she was wearing? She was boasting that she had 21 abortions. That's wicked.
21 murders.
21 little babies murdered. Stop and think about that. I mean, we're made in the image of Elohim. We should look upon each other as our brothers and our sisters. I don't care what color you are. We're all made in his image. We're all made in his image.
Yahweh has made out of one blood every man.
Yeah, and it's one blood. That's right. Yeah, there's variations of blood. You got type A, type O, type B, RH negative, and all kinds of different types. But it's still one blood, and the blood does the same job. Well, you know, these little children are being aborted in large numbers, and that's what happened under King Manasseh of Judah. He became such an evil king, and innocent blood was shed, and they were committing abortions. That's basically what Jezebel and Ahab were all about. They were committing human sacrifice to Baal, because Baal is the Elohim of the Canaanites, and he demanded human sacrifice. And I'm telling you this right now, brethren, that human sacrifice, of course, these children, little children are human sacrifices, but they're taking people, children, women, young boys, and all into captivity, and they're using them for whatever pleasure they desire, and they sacrifice. They're sacrificing. That is the spirit of Baal. That's the spirit of Moloch. Well, here's what Yahweh says in Jeremiah chapter 30 and verse 1. The word that came to Jeremiah from Yahweh, saying, thus speaks Adonai Yahweh, or Yahweh Elohim of Israel, saying, write you in all the words that I have spoken unto you in a book. For lo, the days come, says Yahweh, that I will bring again the captivity of my people, Israel and Judah, says Yahweh, And I will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it. And these are the words that Yahweh spoke concerning Israel and concerning Judah. For thus says Yahweh, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. Brethren, there is no peace in this nation, nor in this world today. Ask you now and see whether a man does travail with child. So many horrible and terrible things are going to be coming upon us that men are going to be writhing in pain, just like they're trying to have a child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble. Even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. Well, sadly, if you keep going through the scriptures, they have to be punished first. They have to be brought to death and destruction before they can be saved out of it. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 32. Okay, so this is the message from Moshe under inspiration of the Spirit to Israel. And Yahweh talks here in verses 32, verses 1 through chapter 32, verses 1 through 14, about all the blessings that Yahweh is the rock. He is the strength. He is the power of Israel. He's Israel's blessing. But it says in verse 15, Yeshurun, which is a poetic name for Israel, waxed fat and kicked. Boy, is that not like America? America has waxed fat. Europe, same thing. Europe has, in England, waxed fat. Australia, Canada, wherever, and kicked. You're grown thick. You're covered with fatness. Then he forsook Eloah, which made him, and lightly esteemed the rock of his salvation. They provoked him to jealousy with strange Elohim. With abominations provoked they him to anger. They sacrificed to devils, to Searim, and not to Eloah, to Elohim whom they knew not, to new Elohim that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not. You know, brethren, back when I was growing up as a child and as a young man, I was a Christian. And I believed that we were living according to what the scripture said. Of course, I had to be rudely awakened. But what troubled me was so many people who were turning away to these Eastern religions, you know. That really bugged me. Why in the world would these idiots, in my mind, why would they be doing all this crazy stuff? Don't they know that they're supposed to worship the Elohim of the scriptures? Well, they did it. The new Elohim that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not, of the rock that begat you, you are unmindful, and have forgotten El that formed you. And when Yahweh saw it, he abhorred them because of the provoking of his sons and of his daughters. And he said, I will hide my face from them. You know, brethren, I've raised 3 beautiful children. I loved every one of them dearly. But it seemed like when they got into that 12th, when they turned 12 and began to enter into their 13th year, well, you know, of course, their hormones started acting up. And the next thing you know, they knew more than we did. And we just had to, eventually, we just had to let them go and experience their own repercussions, you know. So he says, I'm going to hide my face from them, and I'll see what their end shall be, for they are very froward or perverse generation, children in whom is no faith. Children in whom there is no faith. Man, you know, you just, okay, let's just keep reading here. They have moved me to jealousy with that which is not El. You know, there's no other Elohim than Yahweh. But men want to make up all these things, all these other deities, like Egypt. Egypt worshipped the creation, and that's basically what atheists are doing. Atheists are worshiping the creation, aren't they? They're saying that the creation created itself. And so what are they doing? They're lifting themselves up to decide for themselves whatever. And so they make themselves their own Elohim. Whatever seems right in your eyes, do it. Yeah, what seems good, do it. What feels good, do it. They provoke me to anger with their vanities, and I will move them to jealousy with those which are not a people. I will provoke them to anger with a foolish nation. For a fire is kindled in my anger, and shall burn into the lowest hell, and shall consume the earth with her increase, and set on fire the foundations of the mountains. I will heap mischiefs upon them. I will spin my arrows upon them. They shall be burnt with hunger, and devoured with burning heat, and with bitter destruction. This is the judgment that comes upon those who turn their back on Yahweh. I will also send the teeth of beast upon them. Well, Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome were the beast powers, weren't they? With the poison of serpents of the dust. Remember the poison serpents in the wilderness? The sword without, the terror within. And so everybody's worried, and you know, everybody's afraid of the big C word. Cancer. And it's horrible when people come down with cancer. We've had a granddaughter that died with it. My father died with cancer. You know, I've been too dumb to get it so far, I guess. Terror within shall destroy both young men and the virgin, the suckling also with the man of gray hairs. I said I would scatter them into the corners. I would make the remembrance of them to cease from among men. Were it not that I feared the wrath of the enemy, lest their adversaries should behave themselves strangely, and lest they should say, our hand is high, and Yahweh has not done all this. That's the only thing that's going to save us is Yahweh. Yahweh he promised he's going to save his people Israel, and he's going to save Israel in spite of Israel. For they are a nation void of counsel, neither is there any understanding in them. Oh, that they were wise, and that they understood this, that they would consider their latter end. Latter end. And that's where we are, brethren. We are at the latter end in this day and this age. How should one chase 1,000 and two put 10,000 to flight, except their rock had sold them, and Yahweh had shut them up? For their rock is not as our rock, even our enemies themselves being judges. For their vine is of the vine of Sodom, and of the fields of Gomorrah. Their grapes are grapes of gall. Their clusters are bitter. Their wine is the poison of dragons, and the cruel venom of asp. Now, brethren, I tell you, there's a lot of deep meaning here that I could go through and start trying to pull out for you, but there's other things that I have on my mind to propose or to present to you. Is not this laid up in store with me and sealed up among my treasures? To me belongs vengeance and recompense. Their foot shall slide in due time, for the day of their calamity is at hand. And the things that shall come upon them make haste. For Yahweh shall judge his people and repent himself for his servants when he sees that their power is gone. When he sees that their power is gone and there is none shut up or left. Then he's going to say, hey, where's their Elohim? Where are the rocks in whom they trusted, which ate the fat of their sacrifices and drank? The thing about it is, the end is here. The end is here. We are at the latter end. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 6. We are in the latter days. The end of days. And things are working together. If you're not keeping up with the news, you don't know what's going on.
And then if you watch the news, you still don't know what's going on.
Well, if you watch the mainstream media, you still don't know what's going on. You have to get your news from sources that'll tell you a little bit of the truth, but you can't believe everything. You can't believe everything, but there are things that need to be said. Okay. Let's just pick it up here in Isaiah 6, verse 8. Also, I heard the voice of Yahweh saying, whom shall I send? Who will go up for us? Who will go for us? Then I said, here am I, send me. And he said, go and tell this people, hear you indeed, but understand not, and see indeed, but perceive not. Yahweh, they're blind. They walk in the ways of blindness. Make the heart of the people fat and make their ears heavy. That's what we just read over in the book of Deuteronomy, right? And that's what's happened to this nation. And shut their eyes, lest they see with their eyes and hear with their ears and understand with their heart and convert and be healed. Then said I, Yahweh, how long? And he answered, until the cities be wasted without inhabitant, and the houses without men, and the land be utterly desolate for Yahweh. And Yahweh has removed men far away, and there be a great forsaking in the midst of the land. That's the end result. There's no power left, no people left, brethren. Let's go to Ezekiel. Ezekiel chapter 5. You, son of man, take you a sharp knife and take you a barber's razor and cause it to pass upon your head and upon your beard. Then take you balances to weigh and divide the hair. You shall burn with fire a third part in the midst of the city, when the days of the siege are fulfilled. And you shall take a third part and smite it with a knife, and a third part shall you scatter in the wind, and I will draw a sword after them. You shall also take thereof a few in number and bind them in your skirts. Then take of them again and cast them into the midst of the fire and burn them in the fire. For thereof shall be a fire, shall a fire come forth into all the house of Israel. Thus says Adonai Yahweh, this is Jerusalem. I have set it in the midst of the nations and countries that are round about her, and she has changed my judgments into wickedness more than the nations, and my statutes more than the countries that are round about her. For they have refused my judgments and my statutes. They have not walked in them. Brethren, that's not just for Judah, that's for Israel too. It's not just for Judah, it's for Israel also. Therefore, thus says Yahweh, Adonai Yahweh, because you multiplied more than the nations that are round about you, and have not walked in my statutes, neither have kept my judgments, neither have done according to the judgments of the nations that are round about you. Therefore, thus says Adonai Yahweh, Behold, I am against you, and will execute judgments in the midst of you in the sight of the nations. And I will do in you that which I have not done, and whereunto I will not do any more the like, because of all your abominations. Well, let's see. What are abominations to Yahweh? Abortion is one, but how about homosexuality, lesbianism? Those are all abominations.
Any
Bestiality.
relations
Bestiality.
outside of marriage?
Huh?
Any relations outside of
Yeah,
marriage?
relation out of marriage,
A lying tongue, speak
lying tongue. Yeah,
with the evil.
right.
Pride.
And that's basically what it seems like. That's basically what our leaders. That's all they can conjure up. Of course, that's basically what the people conjure up. The people love all of this lawlessness, all of this iniquity, and so do the leaders. All of these abominations. Listen to this, though. Therefore, the fathers shall eat the sons in the midst of you, and the sons shall eat their fathers. And I will execute judgments in you, and the whole remnant of you will I scatter into all the winds. Well, why would people want to eat their children or their fathers?
Scarcity of food.
Yeah, scarcity of food. And brethren, I'm telling you this right now, they're using COVID-19 as an excuse to shut down all food production in this country and in the world, by the way. COVID-19. So people are going to begin to starve here before too long. I mean, we've already had a lot of weather disasters, and we're going to get into that shortly.
Yeah, look at China.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm going to get into.
Sorry.
Wherefore, as I live, says Yahweh, Adonai Yahweh, surely because you have defiled my sanctuary with all your detestable things and with all your abominations, therefore will I also diminish you, neither shall my eye spare, neither will I have any pity. Ooh, no pity. A third part of you shall die in the pestilence, and with famine shall they be consumed in the midst of you. And the third part shall fall by the sword round about you, and I will scatter a third part into all the winds, and I will draw a sword out after them. Thus shall my anger be accomplished, and I will cause my fury to rest upon them, and I will be comforted. And they shall know that I, Yahweh, have spoken it in my zeal, when I have accomplished my fury in them. Now, brethren, Yahweh is a Elohim of love. He's a loving Elohim. And he loves us so much, he wants us to walk according to his statutes, according to his ordinances, according to his judgments. But when people refuse to even believe in him, therefore are not walking in them, he's got to allow actions to come upon us. Moreover, I will make you waste and a reproach among the nations that are round about you in the sight of all that pass by. So it shall be a reproach and a taunt and instruction and an astonishment unto the nations that are round about you, when I shall execute judgments in you in anger and in fury and in furious rebukes. I, Yahweh, have spoken it. Stop and think about this, brethren. We were on a downhill slide, right? We've always been on a downhill slide, but when Barack Obama was elected, we started jumping over the cliff. And the fall would have gotten faster and faster, except Yahweh raised up Donald Trump to kind of reset it and slow it down a little bit. And I shall send upon them the evil arrows of famine. Famine is coming, brethren. Famine is coming. Which shall be for their destruction, and which I will send to destroy you, and I will increase the famine upon you, and I will break your staff of bread. So will I send upon you famine and evil beast, and they shall bereave you, and pestilence and blood shall pass through you, and I will bring the sword upon you. I, Yahweh, have spoken it. That is what's basically, and I'm going to be reading some things here in a little bit that are extra scripture. They're not scripture. They're news accounts, news reports. But we've got to go into the scriptures to show us why and what Yahweh actually says. He's saying that he's going to turn his face away from us and we are going to be destroyed. Ezekiel 7. Moreover, the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Also, you son of man, thus says Adonai Yahweh unto the land of Israel, the end is come upon the four corners of the land, and end the end. Now is the end come upon you, and I will send my anger upon you, and I will judge you according to your ways, and will recompense unto you all your abominations. Because we still have people out there doing all these abominable things. No one is sorry for it. These people are proud of it. And my eyes shall not spare you, neither will I have pity, but I will recompense your ways upon you, and your abominations shall be in the midst of you, and you shall know that I am Yahweh. Thus says Adonai Yahweh, and evil and only evil, behold, is come, and end is come. The end is come. It watches for you. Behold, it is come. The morning is come unto you, O you that dwell in the land. The time is come. The day of trouble is near, and not the sounding again of the mountains. Now will I shortly pour out my fury upon you, and accomplish my anger upon you. And I will judge you according to your ways, and will recompense you for all your abominations. And my eyes shall not spare, neither will I have pity. He's saying time and time again, he's not going to have pity. I will recompense you according to your ways and your abominations that are in the midst of you, and you shall know that I am Yahweh that smites. Behold the day, behold it is come. The morning is gone forth. The rod has blossomed. Pride has blood budded. Violence is risen up into a rod of wickedness. Is that not what we see going on around this nation today?
Yes.
We've seen it in the rest of the world. We've seen the violence that's been sown in the Middle East, in Afghanistan, and other nations around the world.
What's happened in Lebanon?
Yeah, Lebanon. Right, Beirut. You know who did that, right? Israel. That's a new weapon that Israel had already tested it, and now they put it to use.
It's like a small hydrogen bomb. Little weapon.
None of them shall remain, nor of their multitude, nor of any of theirs, neither shall there be wailing for them. The time is come, the day draws near. Let not the buyer rejoice, nor the seller mourn, for wrath is upon all the multitude thereof. For the seller shall not return to that which is sold, although they were yet alive. For the vision is touching the whole multitude thereof, which shall not return, neither shall any strengthen himself in the iniquity of his life. They have blown the trumpet, even to make all ready, but none goes to the battle. For my wrath is upon all the multitude thereof. The sword is without, the pestilence and famine within. He that is in the field shall die with the sword, and he that is in the city, famine and pestilence shall devour him. But they that escape of them shall escape and be on the mountains like doves of the valleys, all of them mourning, everyone for his iniquity. Yeah, finally realize, it's been my iniquity. All hands shall be feeble, and all knees shall be weak as water. Brethren, this is what Yahweh is saying. This is what's coming upon this nation. This is what's coming upon this world. They shall also gird themselves with sackcloth, and horror shall cover them, and shame shall be upon all faces, and baldness upon all their heads. I don't have to worry about that. It's already got me.
Yeah. We're all mean people.
They shall cast their silver in the streets, and their gold shall be removed. Their silver and their gold shall not be able to deliver them in the day of the wrath of Yahweh. They shall not satisfy their souls, neither fill their bowels, because it is the stumbling block of their iniquity. For as for the beauty of his ornament, he set it in majesty, but they made the images of their abominations and of their detestable things therein. Therefore have I set it far from them. So, Yahweh set everything in majesty, but what does man do? Man does nothing but corrupt. And I will give it into the hands of the strangers for a prey, and to the wicked of the earth for a spoil, and they shall pollute it. My face will I turn also from them, and they shall pollute my secret. They've done it. They polluted Yahweh's secret. For the robbers, the Peretes, and this basically is pirates. The pirates, the ones who sail under the skull and crossbones, shall enter into it and defile it, make a chain. For the land is full of bloody crimes, and the city is full of violence. And brethren, what's happening today? You got all of these socialistic democratic mayors and governors and all. And what did they do? They pulled the police back so that all these crowds, these marauding crowds, could go through and they could just lay waste to all kinds of places and people. And now because they pulled the police back, there's murder, there's robbery, there's rape, there's all kinds of wicked and evil things going on. And people are crying out for help, and they're wanting the police to be reinstituted. It's bad, brethren. It's bad. You don't want to be living in those areas. Wherefore I will bring the worst of the heathen, and they shall possess their houses. I will also make pomp to be a pomp of the strong to cease, and their holy places shall be defiled. Destruction comes, and they shall seek peace, and there shall be none. Mischief shall come upon mischief, and rumor shall be upon rumor. Then shall they seek a vision of the prophet, but the law shall perish from the priest, and the counsel from the ancients. The king shall mourn, and the prince shall be clothed with desolation, and the hands of the people of the land shall be troubled. I will do unto them after their way, and according to their deserts will I judge them, and they shall know that I am Yahweh. Let's go to Ezekiel 21. And this is Yahweh's word.
Before you put that over there, Mark Wright.
Mark Wright said, "Oh, Shalom, Jerry. I was hoping you would have prayed for Flo Saporic after her great loss of Bob. I'm worried about her bearing this huge loss in her life. Please hold her up in prayer." Well, we didn't know that, but these people have not been in contact with us, so we know nothing about all this. Well, we're sorry. We certainly have loved Bob and Flo for years, but we've not had any contact with them for a good number of years now. So we didn't know. So that's Bob Saporic. He has died, and he must have been around 90 years old. He was a diabetic, and he was a walking time bomb. Told that many years ago. And yet his wife, Phyllis, she's the one that developed cancer and died. And then he married Flo Wilson, and now he has died. But I mean, brethren, we're not going to last forever. I mean, Bob is a man who loved Yahweh, and evidently Yahweh loved him, because Yahweh gave him a long life. I know he was around 90 years old or better. Probably better.
Your name sounds familiar. What assembly was it from?
They were originally, it's a long history. They were with Yahweh's New Covenant Assembly and then went with us for a while and then went with Yahweh's Assembly of Messiah. And then after that, well, they had a big falling away or falling out, I guess I should say. And so we just lost contact with them. Of course, a lot of those people have cut us off anyway. So
Sorry about interrupting.
that's okay. And the word of Yahweh came, this Ezekiel 21:1. The word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set your face toward Jerusalem and drop your word toward the holy places and prophesy against the land of Israel. This is against Israel back then. This was the land of Israel of basically after Israel was sent away. This is the land of Judah. Judah's first destruction by Babylon. Then they came back, and then there's destruction by the Romans, but yet there's another destruction coming, as we're going to find out here. Because, brethren, there is a conspiracy in the earth, and I've traced that conspiracy out. It begins with Jerusalem and Judah. That's what the scriptures say. Yahweh doesn't lie. Yahweh tells you the truth. Begins with Judah and Jerusalem. They're the ones who had the house of Yahweh. They're the ones who had the priesthood. They're the ones who came up as the Pharisees, and they're the ones who came up and were blinded to the point that they could not recognize the Messiah. Who recognized the Messiah? The ones who were sinning, the harlots and the tax collectors and other people. The sinners were the ones who recognized, and they thought that they were so righteous they didn't need a Savior, and they still teach that today. They didn't need the Messiah.
They said, and those who waited upon me knew it was from Yahweh.
Yeah. Okay, chapter 3. And say to the land of Israel, thus says Yahweh, behold, I am against you, and will draw forth my sword out of its sheath, and will cut off from you the righteous and the wicked. Seeing then that I will cut off from you the righteous and the wicked, therefore shall my sword go forth out of its sheath against all flesh from the south to the north, that all flesh may know that I, Yahweh, have drawn forth my sword out of its sheath. It shall not return anymore. Now, look at what has happened with Israel since they have, I'd say the Judah, the true Jews and false Jews that have returned to the land of Israel. What's happened? They've had a sword on every side.
You meant to say verse 3, not chapter 3.
Did I say chapter 3?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Ezekiel 21, verse 3 through 5. Sigh therefore, you son of man, this is verse 6, with the breaking of your loins and with bitterness sigh before their eyes. And it shall be when they say unto you, wherefore sigh you, that you shall answer for the tidings because it comes. And brethren, my heart has been sighing in me because I see what's coming on this nation. I read news reports. I don't believe in, and I don't follow the mainstream media because they lie. They're liars. All men are liars, though, aren't they? But we do have access, at least presently. We got access to the scriptures, number one, and then I seek for news services that corroborate what the scriptures say. And this is verse 7 again. It shall be when they say unto you, wherefore sigh you, that you shall answer for the tidings because it comes, and every heart shall melt, and all hands shall be feeble, and every spirit shall faint, and all knees shall be weak as water. Behold, it comes, and shall be brought to pass with Adonai Yahweh. Again, the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, prophesy and say, thus says Yahweh. Say, a sword is sharpened, it is also furbished. It is sharpened to make a sore slaughter. It is furbished that it may glitter. That Hebrew word is barak. Barak. And I knew a long time ago that Barack Obama had to do with a glittering sword. Should we then make mirth? It contemns the rod of my son as every tree, and he has given it to be furbished, that it may be handled. The sword is sharpened, and it is furbished, to give it into the hand of the slayer. Cry and howl, son of man, for it shall be upon my people, and it shall be upon all the princes of Israel. Doesn't matter your position, whether you're a high person in a high place or whether you're a low person, a common person like me. Terrors by reason of the sword shall be upon my people. Smite therefore upon your thigh, because it is a trial. And what if the sword contemn even the rod? It shall be no more, says Adonai Yahweh. You therefore, son of man, prophesy and smite your hands together. Smite your hands together. And let the sword be doubled the third time. The sword of the slain, it is the sword of the great men that are slain, which enters into their privy chambers. I have set the point of the sword against all their gates, and that their heart may faint, and their ruins be multiplied. It is made bright. It is wrapped up for the slaughter. Go you one way or other, either on the right hand or on the left, wheresoever your face is set. I will also smite my hands together, and I will cause my fury to rest. I, Yahweh, have said it. So let's just drop down here to verse 25. And you profane wicked prince of Israel, whose day is come when iniquity shall have an end. There's going to be an end to the iniquity of the house of Israel, and we are in those days today, brethren. Thus says Adonai Yahweh, remove the diadem, take off the crown. This shall not be the same. Exalt him that is low, and abase him that is high. I will overturn it, and it shall be no more until he come whose right it is, and I will give it him. That is Yahshua the Messiah. So there's the wicked and profane prince of Israel. Well, let's go over here to the book of Revelation, chapter 12. Now, brethren, this is the book of Revelation. It's not the easiest book to understand, even though it's named Revelation, because when Yahweh inspires something, he gives understanding to those whom it pleases him. To those basically who have his spirit. But we can look at this as a dual thing here. Verse 1, there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. Well, the sun, according to Joseph's dream, the sun was Jacob, the moon was Leah, the mother, and the stars were the children of Israel. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. What was she doing? She was bringing forth the Messiah, the ruler. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon. What's the Hebrew word for red? Edom. Edom. A great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of the heaven, and he cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman and was ready to be delivered for to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. That's Joshua the Messiah. And her child was caught up to Yahweh and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared of Yahweh, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. Now, brethren, this is this could be 1,260 years. It could be a day for a year. It could be any number of things. Because once Joshua was born, and of course the serpent tried to devour him, right? He tempted him right after he was baptized and received the Ruach. Then he was tempted by the serpent, and the serpent sought to devour him. And of course, he had to leave him for a short period of time, but he was troubled throughout all of his ministry until the day that he died on that tree, on that cross. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceives the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a great voice. And brethren, I'm telling you this right now. I believe that Satan has been cast out, that he was cast out in 1908. That's right. During the Tunguska event, he and his angels were cast out. Because a change was coming on the world. The world had been under the influence of Caesarean Christianity up until the time that he was cast out, and then he began to work, and then came World War I, and World War I overthrew the heads of the of a state of the East and the West, and then of course, man, I mean, everything just went to hell in a handbasket. That's the time that you had the iron of Rome, and then you had the iron and clay, which would have been the time of Caesarean Christianity, and then the iron and miry clay, and that's where we are today. We're in today's world. Since World War I, it's been the iron and miry clay, and the miry clay is a clay that you can't do anything. You can't mold it. You can't do anything with it. You've still got the iron government.
You can sink in it.
Yeah, you can sink in it like quicksand. But it's a whole different world that you and I were born into. And it's a wicked and evil world. Not that the world before wasn't, it was, but now we've got people who are ruling over this day and age. It's called the international bankers. And they have taken rule, and they are molding the world to their likes and to their desires. And they don't mind, they love to finance wars, they love to start wars, they finance both sides. They don't care how many people are killed. They don't care who is killed, as long as they make their money, their power, and their wealth off of those wars. And they don't care who wins, really. Doesn't make any difference to them as long as they keep getting their pay for all the weapons, you know.
The thing about it is they finance both sides.
That's what I said. Yeah.
That's the terrible thing.
And heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now has come the salvation and strength and kingdom of our Elohim and the power of his Messiah. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our Elohim day and night. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death. That's where we're getting to, brethren. That's something that's going to happen here shortly. Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you having great wrath, because he knows that he has but a short time in him. How does this serpent, how did the devil start the whole shebang?
From the Greek word 4106, properly to wrong, or to and fro, from safety, truth, or virtue, go astray, deceive, err, seduce, wander, be out of the way.
Well,
That's deceiver.
he basically deceives.
That's deceiver.
Deception. Yeah. He causes people to be deceived. And so people are basically deceived, and they've turned their way. Even Israel and Judah were deceived, and they turned away. They turned away from their creator, from the one who was really their blessing, who was their rock, who was their strength, who blessed them with all kinds of food and good things. And so that's basically what he's doing today. Since he couldn't kill the Messiah, he wants to kill Yahweh's seed on this earth. And so that's what he's doing with people on this earth today. He is sowing the seeds of deception, of doubt, of fear, of trepidation, violence, wickedness, evil, the whole shebang. Let's go to Obadiah. Because there are those who are big players in this system. There is a family, actually basically two families, but one is the major family.
If you trace our family line all the way back, are they kin to Deborah?
Huh?
Are they kin to Deborah?
No,
Which chapter?
Obadiah.
Obadiah, and is there any more other chapters just over there?
The family I'm talking about primarily is Esau. The secondary family is Ishmael. The Ishmaelites are Islam. The Edomites were basically the heads of the Christian empires, except Amalek feared not Elohim. And so Amalek is the first, is the chief, is the head of the nations in today's world. And they would actually, they call themselves in some instances Jews. And that's where you get atheism from, because they feared not Elohim. I think I have that written here somewhere. Yeah, you can remind me 25, 17, and 18, but we'll get to that in a minute. Remember, it's a great red dragon. The vision of Obadiah says, Adonai Yahweh concerning Edom, reds. The reds. We've heard a rumor from Yahweh, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise you, and let us rise up against her in battle. Behold, I have made you small among the heathen. You are greatly despised. They are vile. They are vile persons. They're contemptible. The pride of your heart has deceived you, you that dwell in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high. And that Hebrew is Marom, whose habitation is wrong. That says in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? Though you exalt yourself as the eagle, and though you set your nest among the stars, thence will I bring you down, says Yahweh. If thieves came to you, if robbers by night, how are you cut off? Would they not have stolen till they had enough? If grape gatherers come to you, would they not leave some grapes? How are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? All the men of your confederacy, your compact, your league, what do we have today? It started out the League of Nations, now it's the United Nations. That's the compact. The men that were at peace with you have deceived you and prevailed against you. They that eat your bread have laid a wound under you, and there is none understanding in him. Shall I not in that day, says Yahweh, even destroy the wise men out of Edom, and understanding out of the mount of Esau? And your mighty men, O Taman, shall be dismayed to the end that every one of the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter. For your violence against your brother Jacob, shame shall cover you, and you shall be cut off forever. Esau is said to do the same thing to Jacob that Cain did to Abel. Kill his brother. In the day that you stood on the other side, in the day that the strangers carried away captive his forces and foreigners entered into his gates and cast lots upon Jerusalem, even you were one of them. But you should not have looked on the day of your brother, in the day that he became a stranger, neither should you have rejoiced over the children of Judah in the day of their destruction, neither should you have spoken proudly in the day of distress. This is going to happen again in our day today. It's happened twice. Third time coming. You should not have entered into the gate of my people in the day of their calamity. Yea, you should not have looked on their affliction in the day of their calamity, neither have laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity. Neither should you have stood in the crossway to cut off of his that did escape, neither should you have delivered up those of his that did remain in the day of distress. For the day of Yahweh is near on all the heathen. As you have done, it shall be done unto you. Your reward shall return on your own head. I'm going to stop right there because I want to go over here to Ezekiel 35. And we're in those days. We're in the last days. Ezekiel 35. Moreover, the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Son of man, set your face against Mount Seir and prophesy against it. Now, Mount Seir means satyr, goat, fawn, devil. So this is the mountain, this is the kingdom of the devil. And say unto it, Thus says Adonai Yahweh, Behold, O mount, O kingdom of the devil, Mount Seir, I am against you, and I will stretch out my hand against you, and I will make you most desolate. I will lay your cities waste, and you shall be desolate, and you shall know that I am Yahweh, because you have had a perpetual hatred and have shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end. Brethren, Yahweh's got to stop the iniquity of Israel. He's either got to stop them or totally and completely destroy them forever. And if he did that, then his word would be no good. His word will not fail. He's yet going to have mercy on Israel, but Israel still has to suffer calamity. Israel still has to suffer disaster. Israel has to still suffer destruction. There's no way around it. Yahweh's word. Yahweh's word is declaring these things. Israel's sin has to have an end. Well, guess what? There's a land today known as the land of the dragon. It's called China. And they're Reds. They're known as Reds. Edomites. Now, they're not true descendants of Esau. They're spiritual descendants of Esau. There's a spiritual descendancy and there's a physical descendancy. But they are a spiritual seed. The spiritual seed of Esau, Edom, Amalek, Seir, the devil, and Tyre. Since the 50s, they were known as the Reds. The Red Communist Reds. So this has to do with Rome, which was known as Esau, Edom, Red, Amalek, Seir, and Tyre. Russia, the third Rome, became the Red Communist after World War I. During World War II, World War I, they were overthrown. The Caesar, the Tsar, was overthrown, and then the Amalekites, the Reds, took over, communist Reds. And they were instrumental in turning the Chinese into Reds, into Edomites. Of course, the international bankers primarily established in these last days in order to control the world are Edomite, Amalekite Jews. And Amalek feared not Elohim. Let's just look at that real quick here in Deuteronomy 25. Verse 17. Remember what Amalek did unto you by the way when you were come forth out of Egypt, how he met you by the way and smote the hindmost of you, even all that were feeble behind you when you were faint and weary, and he feared not Elohim. And so he says, therefore it shall be when Yahweh your Elohim has given you rest from all your enemies round about in the land, which Yahweh your Elohim gives you for an inheritance to possess it, that you shall blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven, and you shall not forget it. That was a commandment from Yahweh, which Israel failed to obey. Okay. So now we're going to get out of the scriptures for a bit. We've already read a bunch of the things that are that Yahweh has declared and decreed against Israel, and because of their iniquities, we're coming to the end of days. And here's an article that I pulled up. This is actually from Common Sense. Common Sense. Oh, shoot. I can't remember it's CSS. I can't remember. Common Sense is the first two letters, but I can't remember what the last one means. But this is the Chinese floods will change the balance of power on the planet. The grand solar minimum, is it really the cause of what's going on in China? Well, I think it's also some technology too. I mean, the Three Gorges Dam, is it really tied to the weather, or is it tied to bad engineering, bad planning downstream? I think it's some of both. So what we're looking at here is the Chinese running out of options. They build these retainer walls, and they know they'll only work for a while. It buys them time to find other solutions, so they only try to shore up the dams, and it's not working at all. So we have a situation where eventually the Chinese are going to run out of options. Listen, the Chinese are clever people. They're good engineers. I think that they're taking every possible step they can to handle the situation. But I think at the end of the day, they're going to fail miserably through no fault of their own. I don't know that they could have constructed a system that would have been foolproof to what's happening. They could have constructed a system that wasn't so interdependent. We're looking at major cities in China that are now under 6 feet of water. Some are projected to be 9 feet underwater in the next few days. We're looking at a large portion of the factory industry, the personal protective gear that we've come to rely on to fight COVID-19 comes from here. And the people that think we need to be wearing masks and gloves and gowns are freaking out over what's happening in China. You know, China's been inundated with rain, with bad weather and rain just for over 40 days, just solid rain. And it's been flooding so much of their industrial center. Not only that, a lot of things tied to the supply chain like food. Food is going to be such a major problem for everyone. You may get your storable food, but you will have to protect it. And that's true for any of the resources that I have mentioned, including your house.
Oh, by the way, it's been raining up north where they don't get a lot of rain, and the Yellow River is now flowing over into the rest of it.
The agricultural devastation that's being caused right now in central China for agriculture is gone. Next year's harvest is gone. China, and not just China, but China in particular, is facing a major famine that could affect up to half of the country. I'm reading projections that are telling me that up to 400 to 500 million Chinese are going to have to exit the country, or at least the region. 400 to 500 million are going to have to leave.
They already, some of them have been to Vietnam, and when the ones that they're catching over in Vietnam, they're arresting them.
China doesn't have the food to take care of this. You say, well, Dave, you say they are in South Africa and they're taking the land of the white farmers, but that's a pittance compared to what they need. It's not going to solve the problem. Now, the factories, a lot of the things that you've come to depend on are not going to be available much longer. We've talked about the supply chain chaos, and that supply chain chaos is happening right now. You go into Walmart right now in this little town, and actually in other towns too, even the bigger cities, and you don't find the shelves stocked as full as they used to be, and they're out of a lot of things. Supply chain chaos. As a matter of fact, my son-in-law is a truck driver, and he was blessed to be able to have a run that's here in Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana, where we've still got a good economy going, but a lot of the other drivers are having problems because they're out going into other areas where there's nothing but chaos, and they're not getting the driving time and the deliveries and so forth that they've been counting on. We talked about it in relationship to the COVID-19 virus. Now we have the COVID plus this, plus some people say that there is a second virus starting in China and that people are growing sick in great numbers. Well, we'll see. I think that the reports are probably reliable, but we don't even need to have a second virus to have a major catastrophe. Yeah, this first one has been bad enough. China will have to go on a buying spree to feed her people. Who's going to take the worthless yuan? That's their money. It's worthless. And China doesn't even have enough gold, even though they've worked on stockpiling. They don't have enough gold to buy the food that they need. Let me ask you this question. You're in your house. Your neighbor has food. You look at your kids, and they are 1 or 2 days from starving to death. What are you going to do? Probably the first thing you're going to do is you're going to be nice and you're going to ask for help. When they say, hey, I've got all I can handle here. I'm barely making ends meet. I can't help you. What are you going to do then? You'll wait for the lights to go out next door, and then you'll do what you have to do. What makes you think a nation is going to do any different?
All right.
Right. Oh. I remember reading back in the 90s that wars will not be fought over resources per se in the traditional sense, like oil and gold. They'll be fought over food. And I thought, that sounds odd, and it really struck me odd. I contemplated, I read about it. I was fascinated by it because, remember, I was a student of war strategy going back to my undergrad days. And I came away with the conclusion that this could happen even if we have enough food on the planet to feed everyone. If you have a distribution problem in a particular region, this could lead to war. So let me ask you a question. Out of those 400 to 500 million Chinese that are going to be displaced, they're not tied to a farm. They're not tied to a factory. They're tied to government welfare. Now, China, well, and so who's going to provide the welfare? We're the biggest welfare nation in the world. Now, China doesn't want war. The Chinese people really do not want war. The CC, Communist Chinese Party, or Chinese Communist Party, knows this. But if you have 500 million people and 300 million are male, and they face the prospect of starving or fighting, what do you think they're going to do? So we read in the Bible about a 200 million man army. Does that really seem out of reach now?
No.
This event in China is catastrophic. Now, there's some people I've heard express the view that they blame China for the virus and they say it's just desserts, it's karma, blah, blah, blah. Well, it isn't karma when the Third World War arrives at your door. Regardless of what your beliefs are about the virus, about China's complicity, whatever you believe is irrelevant. Whenever you get to the point to where you're saying we got a ready-made set of fighters willing to go, if I was to devise a conspiracy using, let's say, weather weapons, this would be the one I would use if I wanted to get World War III started. So it could be that they're using weather weapons against the Chinese in order to displace these Chinese, and we'll find out why in just a bit. Where would they turn their attention first? I'm not sure. I think they have two strategies in mind. I'm only projecting now. We're just playing the war board game right now. We're sitting in a classroom in my junior year in my university, and we're talking about war strategy. They could turn to India, which has pretty significant food supplies, but not enough. They could gobble up what little bit they have for Vietnam, which might feed 5 to 8% of their population. India is estimated to be large enough to feed about 50 to 60% of their population. The other strategy they could invoke is the South China Sea, draw the U.S. into a war, destroy the U.S., and begin to occupy the U.S., and here we have the resources they need. If you remember, I wrote a 5-part series in July 2019 in which Wei Feng, that's the general, says that we're going to wipe America out, occupy the mainland, and we don't want to have to co-occupy. He was talking about the total obliteration of the American people, his words, not mine.
Wow.
This is why I took this seriously. I'm not sure which way it will go. It might go in both directions. Well, if he was reading the scriptures that we read today, he might be a little more sure about which way it's going to go, right? But regardless, people, we are at a time right now in history that's unparalleled, and we actually have to go back. I think it's 1,000 years to look at how China was desperate then, but they didn't have the ability to project military power. Their ability is still limited today, but it gets increased if you have a 300 million man army or potential army that size. There's a lot to consider. So here's the next one. Secret leaked speech by Chinese defense minister demonstrates China's intent to destroy America. And this was submitted by the same man, David Hodges, on July the 10th, 2019. It says the Central Committee believes as long as we resolve the United States problem at one blow, our domestic problems will all be readily solved. Therefore, our military battle preparation appears to aim at Taiwan, but in fact is aimed at the United States, and the preparation is far beyond the scope of attacking aircraft carriers or satellites. This is that Chinese Defense Minister, General Wei Feng. This is the first part of a multi-part series which exposes China's intention to go to war with the United States. Part 1 is based upon the idea that the Chinese fully intend on not just conquering America, but destroying America. A recent speech made to the CCP in Communist China speaks to the resolve and historical overview that exists in China with regard to not just invading the United States, but to decisively destroy the country and kill as many Americans as possible. The content of this speech was leaked to John Moore. Paul Martin forwarded me the copy. I have spent previous 12 hours gathering opinions and statements from my very best sources. Sometimes Sometimes my sources can be a bit slow to respond. However, all but one of the people I solicited opinions from answered within a couple of hours of receiving this. To a man, they believe everything in the report. However, many expressed extreme surprise that this content would be discussed in such an open political environment. The universal consensus is that this is authentic and does represent the majority philosophy of the CCP. So here's a heading. China is not, never has been, or will ever be an American ally. For another report on another day, I firmly believe that when, not if, the Red Dawn invasion of the United States commences, the Chinese will be among the invading armies. That is why the Chinese-controlled Hollywood forced producers of the remake of Red Dawn in 2012 to change the identity of the invading force from Chinese to North Korean. I believe the script hit too close to home. Recently, the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, conducted an online survey conducted by CNOC.command. One of the key questions they asked was the following: will you shoot at women, children, and prisoners of war? More than 80% of the respondents answered in the affirmative, exceeding by far our expectations as expressed by the Chinese minister. General Wei went on to say, the central issue of this survey appears to be whether one would shoot at women, children, and prisoners of war, but its real significance goes far beyond that. Ostensibly, our intention is mainly to figure out what the Chinese people's attitude towards war is. If these future soldiers do not hesitate to kill even non-combatants, they'll naturally be doubly ready and ruthless in killing combatants. Therefore, the responses to the survey questions may reflect the general attitude people have towards war. The purpose of the CCP Central Committee in conducting this survey is to probe people's minds. We wanted to know if China's global development will necessitate massive deaths in enemy countries. Will our people endorse that scenario? Will they be for or against it? So subsequently, General Wei deems the Chinese people ready for war, and we can expect the brutality of invading Chinese military force to be off the charts. It is clear that the CCP intention is to commit genocide against American cities, and they simply wanted to see if their people were on board with the intention, and they apparently are. Now, here's the key. In World War II, what did Hitler tell the German people? They were the superior race. They were the master race of the world, right? Well, here's another heading. The Chinese view themselves as the master race of the planet. So we have another master race coming up who feel like they are the ones who need to be the masters and supreme race of the world. The Chinese view Americans and pretty much everyone else with contempt. They believe that they and they alone are the master race and are entitled to rule the planet. This is the Chinese version of America's 19th century manifest destiny. We can assert that we are the product of cultural roots of more than 1 million years, civilization and progress of more than 10,000 years, an ancient nation of 5,000 years, a single Chinese entity of 2,000 years. This is the Chinese nation that calls itself descendants of Yan and Wang. The Chinese nation that we are so proud of. Hitler's Germany had once bragged that the German race was the most superior race on earth, but the fact is, our nation is far superior to the Germans. During our long history, our people have disseminated throughout the Americas and the regions along the Pacific Rim, and they became Indians in the Americas and East Asian ethnic groups in South Pacific. We all know that on account of our national superiority during the thriving and prosperous Tang Dynasty, our civilization was at the peak of the world. We were the center of the world's civilization, and no other civilization in the world was comparable to ours. Later on, because of our complacency, narrow-mindedness, and self-enclosure of our own country, we were surpassed by Western civilization and the center of the world shifted to the west. In reviewing history, one may ask, will the center of the world civilization shift back to China? Comrade E. Zinn put it in his report to the Central Committee in 1988. If the fact is that the center of leadership of the world was located in Europe as of the 18th century and later shifted to the United States in the middle 20th century, then in the 21st century, the center of leadership of the world will shift to the east of our planet. And the east, of course, mainly refers to China. And so the Chinese model, there's another heading. The Chinese model for expansion is based upon Nazi Germany with one exception. The Germans were too soft. They started their actions against many areas at one time. And the Chinese are going to only focus on one enemy, America. America. They focus on, they figure if they take America down, then they got the rest of the world. No problem. We got invasion forces gathering on our southern border. There's at least 15,000 UN-trained Chinese troops on our southern border. Maybe as many as 140,000. But here's the article that I downloaded from whatdoesitmean.com. This is July 25th this year. China prepares 500,000 strong American invasion force in preparation for Biden election win. They're supporters of Biden. And of course, if you want to know the truth, when you get on Google, when you get on YouTube, when you get on Facebook and these other big tech companies, if you say the wrong thing, which now they've got Chinese, the Chinese are actually they've turned all this over to people who are in favor of the Chinese, and so they do not. There's no longer freedom of speech. They will block you. They will take you off of the program.
They must have took you off because yours disappeared on live stream.
Really?
Couldn't find it.
On YouTube? Okay, so they took me off of YouTube.
Normally it comes straight up on mine, and you go to your page and it ain't even there.
Really? Huh.
That's why they want to disarm us too.
So they'll block us on Facebook too, right?
Yep. Things around like that. That's why they want to disarm us too.
Excuse me, everybody.
Just to take away our guns. That's why they got California.
When I started mentioning China,
we got California over there with a Chinese governor over there. That's the best thing for an invasion.
Right.
You got the whole West Coast. Well,
here it is, but it's still on mine. It's still on mine. Okay, so we're there so far. Okay. This is by Sorka Fall, and as reported to our Western subscribers, a mind-blowing Security Council report circulating in the Kremlin today discussing a Ministry of Defense war warning based on the bulletin of the atomic scientist as having recently assessed that India may have put the communist Chinese capital city of Beijing within the range of its nuclear weapons. Says equally worrisome to note is the United States having just made this past week a strategic shift to the critical Pacific Ocean region by deploying its nuclear weapon capable F-35 fighter aircraft to a new airbase facility hidden deep in the interior of Alaska. A war move made notable because the F-35 is feared to be the biggest electronic collection system ever devised. And our F-35 surveillance aircraft now positioned to defend the huge Pacific exercise centered on Guam, being conducted by naval forces of the United States, Japan, and Australia. A massive naval force quickly assembled within hours of Australia joining the United States to declare that Communist China's claim on the South China Sea does not comply with international law, and was immediately followed by Indonesia rushing 24 of its warships to fight back against Communist China's claims on the South China Sea too. So basically what's happening now is if they're going to fight the United States, they're going to have some other people to fight too, because they've actually begun to extend their borders into the South China Sea. They claim ownership of all of the South China Sea. And that, of course, is not according to international law. Rush to war moves against Communist China being led by the United States, one of whose reasons for is disturbingly outlined in a Foreign Intelligence Service document that's also being discussed in this report. A document that begins by noting that Communist China has 2 million police officers as opposed to the United States having just under 690,000, that are augmented by the estimated 1.5 million forces belonging to the People's Armed Police, the political police forces of the Chinese Communist Party that SBR intelligence analysts assert are preparing to send 500,000 of them into the United States upon Socialist Democrat Party candidate Joe Biden declaring that he's won the 3rd November presidential election. Brad, this election is going to be something else, because the Democrats were worried that Trump would not accept the election results of 2016. But he won, and they couldn't accept it. Well, do you think they're going to accept Trump winning a 2nd term? Hell no. Sorry about the language, but no. An assertion made by the SBR after U.S. police forces captured a People's Armed Police vehicle and its driver last 10 September in California. They got them in California. They've shipped a bunch of those people over here. And even more. Huh?
They
Yeah.
shipped a lot of Chinese.
Communist Chinese? Yeah.
Well, they own the deep sea ports over there along that west coast. They bought them up back in the 90s.
They own so much of the West Coast that it's unreal. And plus, they own all of the, what is it, the electrical, well, the
electrical grid.
the electrical grid, the what is it, those cellular things,
Solar panels.
solar panels.
Yeah.
They have solar panel farms, and they have Chinese soldiers there guarding them, running them and guarding them.
They also have, they own the deep sea ports over in Bermuda too.
Oh, they own these seaports. Of course, they own the Panama Canal, and they built deep seaports in the islands out in the Caribbean, and down in the Atlantic, and then they have bought up the seaports here in California and other places. Okay. So with even more people's armed police vehicles being reported in other West Coast region American states under Socialist Democrat Party rule. And though U.S. forces quickly disappeared the driver of the People's Armed Police marked vehicle, the FBI issued an immediate grave warning saying that they believe there may be more of a criminal intent behind the unusual Chinese police activities in America. An FBI warning followed on 17 September when a mysterious group calling itself War on Fear registered an account and published a video on YouTube showing People's Armed Police Forces forcing prisoners into train cars a video that could have only been obtained by state intelligence service, as it was hacked from the video feed of a People's Armed Police drone. And brethren, Jerry and I talked about that, and Jerry thought that it looked like Muslims, but it was not. It was Americans. It was American men. They all had their heads shaved. They all had their arms behind their backs. They were in a big group, and they marched them off somewhere. And when confronted with it on live British television this past week, saw Communist Chinese Ambassador Liu Xiaoping saying it only showed a normal transfer of prisoners, a claim supported by official Communist Chinese news sources saying that the Western media is being malicious, neither of which, though, explains why many of these people's armed police were wearing English language SWAT markings on their uniforms, or why they were even giving commands in English.
How much longer?
You got
A little bit.
Diane Feinstein,
Just a little bit.
with a Chinese spy for 20 years. She goes to China all the time, along with Hillary Clinton in.
Okay, that's fine.
And
Cool.
she was praising the Chinese
Yeah.
this last week.
Oh
It
yeah.
was.
Diane
Feinstein.
Feinstein.
Oh yeah, she's got a big. She's got a big.
She's one of the senators over in California.
Okay, according to this report in American article published this week titled "Why This Election Could Be the Most Important Since U.S. Civil War," aside from its stating that this election is undoubtedly the most important one since 1860, the outcome of that was the war between the states. It grimly warned the election will be contested no matter which side wins, because the country has become totally polarized. No matter who wins, the other side is going to be terminally unhappy with the result. A warning being supported by the likes of Socialist Democrat Party leader, U.S. Congresswoman, the wonderful Maxine Waters, who maniacally this week told her radical followers that President Trump's sending federal police forces to protect lives and properties from mob violence was all a plot. She exposed by stating, this is what you see in countries where you have dictators, in third world countries with dictators who have paramilitary that they can call up anytime they want. As a matter of fact, it has been suggested that this is a trial run of the President of the United States, who may be organizing to not accept what happens when we have the election if he's not elected. Yeah, what is she crying about? They're always crying about what they're doing, but they're blaming it on the other side. The Republicans, when the Republicans have lost an election, they always just go home.
Use the other
But
side.
the Democrats have not gone home. Is he going to pull out his military? Is he going to engage us? He has already alluded that to there may be a civil war if he's not reelected. Now, jumping into this looming cataclysm called the 3rd November presidential election, to make it even more absurd, this report notes is the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, ODNI, who this past week issued a comical warning about foreign interference in this election. A warning, however, that fails to explain how any foreign nation could possibly harm an election process more than the Americans do to themselves. Best example in the 2016 presidential election that saw the Obama-Clinton regime and their intelligence agencies illegally interfering in it so much, U.S. Attorney General William Barr was forced to call what they were doing a coup attempt. Most bizarre about this American presidential election, this report details, is that its main Socialist Democrat Party candidate, Joe Biden, has devised a campaign strategy that has increasingly focused on blaming Trump for disease, depression, and racial unrest, none of which Trump is responsible for. And today sees this Biden campaign strategy having made the entire Socialist Democrat Party the party of disease, depression, and radical violence in order to aggravate all three crises. with it being noted that the real danger for these socialist Democrats is that this could backfire, and most certainly backfired this past week with the hugely popular American black radio personality Charlemagne the God, who, after hearing Biden call Trump the first racist president, reminded Biden that America has had actually slave-owning presidents, thus earning Biden the dubious Donkey of the Day award for Charlemagne, who further told Biden to shut the F up. Watching as this slow-moving train wreck of an election draws ever closer, and brethren, this is important. It's important that we understand what's going on here, that we see what's going on here. The mainstream media is not going to let you know, but we need to know. We need to be ready, because chaos and pandemonium, it's already here, but it's going to get worse. Okay. Watching as this slow moving train wreck of an election draws ever closer by the day, this report continues, is noted leftist Hollywood filmmaker Michael Moore, who in 2016 warned his fellow socialist Democrat comrades that Trump was going to win if they weren't careful, and who is warning, I want to caution everyone, do not underestimate the evil genius that is Donald J. Trump. A warning joined by Moore stating the facts that Trump has lost none of his base and they are more rabid than ever, sleeping on the sidewalk for 5 nights just to get in to see Trump. That is commitment. Do not take Trump for granted. Don't think he can't win. Don't get all cocky telling everyone there's no way he's winning the White House, because frankly, you sound a lot like yourself 4 years ago when you told everyone there's no way this country's going to put a clown in the Oval Office. True facts stated by Moore that he followed by saying, if you are once again not taking my warning seriously, then I have a question I want you to answer, and I ask you to answer me honestly. How many people would line up for 5 days just to hear Joe Biden talk? 12? 5? None? The candidate who inspires the most people in the swing states to excitedly get to the polls and ensure that each of them bring 10 to 20 of their friends and family with them on election day, all of them highly motivated, fired up, and on a mission from God. That's who wins the White House. Soon to confront these fired up American citizens on a mission from God as they prepare to vote in what is being called the most important president election of their lifetime. However, this report points out is the grave warning just issued in the article, 8 Big Reasons Election Day 2020 Could Be a Disaster, that says, you may think you know how bad November 3rd will be, but all signs point to something far, far worse, and wherein it methodically lists the disasters for this election just waiting to happen. No one has really prepared for, and could even end up with both Trump and Biden declaring that they won. Okay. The current strategic assessment by Russian Federation military and intelligence analysts of what the Socialist Democrat Party is doing, this report concludes, is that no matter if President Trump wins the 3 November election in a landslide, Joe Biden will be declared the winner by the socialist globalist forces the world over. The world over. Let this sink in. A scenario that will see Biden and his socialist forces fleeing to the socialist iron grip controlled Democrat Party regions on the American West Coast, which Biden will declare as the new temporary seat of the American government, after which this new government will appeal for international recognition as being the legitimate government of the United States, and they'll claim that President Trump is only able to win by cheating, that communist China will immediately recognize and offer to support with People's Armed Police Forces, thousands of whom will already be pre-positioned in North America, a scenario that no one knows which side the American military will support, but whose wild card in these geopolitical poker game for control of America is the largest standing army the world has ever seen, and they are the over 100 million gun owners in America standing solidly behind President Trump, all of whom keep buying in historical record numbers even more weapons. Now, brethren, Donald Trump warned in a meeting that he had in Ohio the other day. He said, "This may be the last time you see me for a while." He said, "I have many enemies, and this may be the last time that you see me for a while." But one of the things that I read in this is, and all of this stuff is how they're doing in South America. They are imposing a war tax on people. People living in their property, they impose a war tax on them. And the people, of course, they try to pay, but if they can't pay, they send their representatives in. And if they can't pay, then they kill the husband, the father. They take the mother and the daughters into sex trafficking, and the young boys from 6 to 14, they put into their armed forces. It just so happens that Black Lives Matter is doing the same thing right now. And this is what Beto O'Rourke was talking about. Beto O'Rourke, who was running for the presidency, was going to talking about imposing a war tax. Well, Black Lives Matters, they want people to pay. It's a mafia style situation. So, just about done. It'd be cool. Brethren, there's a scenario that has come to me in the last few days. Rome was a democratic republic, which is what America is today. But unrest leading to chaos led Augustus Caesar to be established as the supreme dictator. In other words, Rome went from a democratic republic to a dictatorship because of civil unrest and problems. They were of a physical and spiritual nature. America, after 220 to 230 years of democratic Republican government, is at a crossroads. There's unrest and chaos in this country. The Socialist, Communist, Democrat Party is exposing their hand. More and more of their illegal antics, brethren, are being exposed as the election nears. And look at what these governors and mayors of these Democrat Socialist areas have done. They've allowed these people to riot. They say that they're peaceful, but you're not peaceful when you're destroying property and killing and raping people. It would be political and national suicide to allow the Democrat Party to remain in power and possibly take over after Trump's second term, wouldn't it? Either Trump has to be set up as president for as long as he lives, president for life, because the only one who has stood up to the Democrats, or the Democrats are going to take over after his second term and usher in destruction of everything that he's done in this country. It already looks like Democrats are going to claim victory, even if defeated, and will divide the country. And if they set up a system under Biden, Pelosi, and Clinton, or whoever in the West, this is just going to open up the door to a Chinese UN invasion. Now, according to the scriptures, America, Judah, Israel must be destroyed at the end of this age, which will establish the last bastion of the Roman beast system, brethren, which is going to ascend to its original primacy. And that's going to bring on the return of Yahshua the Messiah and his kingdom on the earth to resurrect and reestablish Israel and Judah as the kings and priests of the earth. Don't worry about China being the 21st century masters, the master race, because Yahshua is going to intervene. And he's going to establish the kingdom of heaven. Don't fear. We must not fear. Love, true love, casts out fear. True knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, knowledge of Yahweh, casts out fear. But we need to have our eyes open. We need to see what Yahweh is saying about his people. We need to understand what Yahweh is saying about his people. Yahshua himself said, do not fear those who can kill the body, but after that they can do nothing else. Fear him who has the power to destroy both body and soul in Gehenna, or that is, the lake of fire. So, brethren, I know it's been a little while. This has been a longer message. It's already 3:30, almost 3:30. But I needed to set the stage through Scripture before I even get into these articles here. And I did not get half of what I wanted to read out of these articles. It's a deep subject. I'll be writing about it in the newsletter. But in the meantime, brethren, just pray. We got to be praying for President Trump. That's one of the things that we neglected to do. I need to put that on our prayer list, is be praying for President Trump. But still, the most important prayer that we need to be praying is your kingdom come, isn't it? Yahweh's kingdom come, in order that his will may be done on this earth as it is in heaven. Well, brethren, have a tremendous rest of Shabbat. I pray that this message has helped to open your eyes a little bit more about what's going on. But I also, I don't want to scare anybody. I just want you to have the faith to know that Yahweh is our Elohim. He will deliver us. And if we have to perish physically in this time, you're not dead forever. He's going to raise you from the grave. So Yahweh bless. May his peace and his rest and his safety be upon you. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Jerry, you want to come and close with prayer, please?
Shabbat shalom, everybody. Heavenly Father, in Yeshua's mighty and awesome name, we ask and we pray. My Father, we lift up our President Trump, my Father, for you put him in that place to slow down Satan. That your timeline will be kept, not our timeline, not man's timeline, but your timeline, my Father, to give Israel a chance to understand and come to knowledge and know who they are, where we are, and where we're going. My Father, we thank you so much for the Sabbath day, my Father, which is our oath, our sign, our seal that you are our Elohim, my Father. And we thank you so much for that. Because without you, we can do nothing through the Messiah, Yeshua HaMashiach. My Father, we pray for all the other assemblies around the world, my Father, that they may also come to the knowledge and understanding of what's going on in today's world. That they may prepare, my Father, not their physical, but their spirituals to get right and know that you are Elohim. My Father, we also thank you for the food that we're about to take and the clean foods that's in your law, my Father. We thank you for the nourishment of those foods, for the nourishment of our bodies and our souls. And give strength, my Father, to carry on for the fill for them, unbelieving, and all liars shall have their place in the lake that burns with fire and brimstone. Let us not be among those, my Father, but give you praise and thanks always, every day, my Father. In Yeshua's mighty and awesome name. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Are you guys in the restroom? Okay.
There's your oh no. You know, a while ago I looked it up on mine. It said the video ended 2 hours ago with no views.
Really?
Yep. I'm like, well, how can that be? So when you put it on there, it may have been just rerunning. I have no idea.
When I put what on?
When you turned your telephone on a while ago and was looking,
Uh-huh.
that's what it told me on mine, that it had